guys, Jenny from Rewild, and I am talking to you about ketosis today. So we're going to talk about ketosis, so I want just for those of you who aren't familiar with me and my work here at Rewild, we're an ancestral health coaching company. We talk about, primal ancestral health, looking at and trying to leverage the wisdom when we look back into the history of the evolution of humanity, and gaining wisdom, looking through that evolutionary biology lens, bringing that forward for the modern human, and then blending in the current science and technology. How can we optimally live, right? What are the best ways for us to be healthy, well, happy, vital, and passionate? So today we're going to talk about ketosis, but we're not going to talk about the keto diet. So if you were to just go on Google and type in the word keto diet, you get a lot of stuff, and it's very different from what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the actual metabolic state in which ketosis is. Just give you a little bit of background, very, very basic background about what ketosis is, what a ketone is, and then how to implement that in your life. We do it a little bit different here because we are, again, primal. So we have a protein-centric approach because we really want you to be building lean muscle while you are losing fat or during your journey. So what is ketosis? Ketosis is a natural metabolic state in the human body. So we evolved. If you think about how we evolved, like right now we are just in surrounded by food, right? And I would challenge the word food because most of it is industrial food product, which I do not consider food. But the historically, evolutionary, like as you look through, the human species has been living predominantly in food scarcity for most of our existence until now. But now as in, this very relative short period of time that we've had DoorDash and drive-thrus and supermarkets and round-the-clock food, and then also this bad nutritional advice saying that we should be eating 5 or 6 times a day and that we should be eating high-carb, low-fat, and blah, 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 blah. And being fed this industrially made, factory-processed junk that we call food. So obviously as a base, because we are primal focused, I suggest that you eat a really nice base of animal products, grass-fed, wild, and pastured, making sure that you know your farmers, making sure you know the farming process and the slaughtering process as well. So that you're really making a conscious decision. And then being aware of the vegetables you're eating. Are these vegetables that you can tolerate? Do they have oxalates? Do they have lectins? Are you, and where you are, so that you're being conscious on both your food, and your plant intake. So, ketosis is a metabolic state. It is. But a lot of times people are like, "Oh, is it the same as diabetic ketoacidosis?" No, diabetic ketoacidosis is a disease state that happens in a person with another disease that has diabetes. Glucose and ketones really because they're counter-regulatory, should never both be elevated. And in the diseased state of ketoacidosis, those are both elevated, along with a lot of other clinical indications of disease. Ketosis, nutritional ketosis, is something that happens. It is a function, not a bug, not a disease, not an imbalance. It is a function. It is a adaptation that human beings have after living, and actually actually kicks off a whole bunch of amazing adaptations and health survival pathways and things that really bring us into optimal health, like autophagy and things like that. Another video. But it's actually really amazing because it allows us to. So what it is a metabolic state that allows us to burn the fuel in which we give it to it. It allows for metabolic flexibility. And if any of you have seen my metabolic flexibility video, we want to be able to burn what we give the body, and we want to be able to thrive even when we don't have food. And that's what's amazing. So ketosis happens at two different ways. Ketosis happens when we have a no calories, right? So when nothing is coming in, and it also happens in a low glycemic environment, hence a low carb diet. So when we're fasting, the body goes in and it breaks up our adipose tissue. It goes in, takes our fat, and it breaks it open into fatty acids and glycerol, and then it brings it to the liver and it produces ketones. And then the body can use ketones. There are some parts of the body that can't use ketones, but the amazing thing is the body has a process for that. The body has a function for that. And the body can gluconeogenesis, the body creates its own glucose. In fact, out of the three macronutrients, which are carbohydrates, fats, and protein, you have an essential exogenous need, right? So exogenous meaning coming from outside the body. You have to feed your body protein and fat, right? But there is zero exogenous need for glucose. Your body will endogenously make the glucose that you need. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you should engage in a zero carb diet unless that is something you're called to do, and it's something we can help you do. But you don't need it. Okay, you can use them, you can eat them. There's nothing wrong with eating, the appropriate vegetables for you, but you don't have to have them, which is kind of a mind blow for all of us, I know. So when you're in this metabolic state, there's two ways that you get into this metabolic state. You get fasting, so your body will break down your fat and will bring those fatty acids and glycerol over to the liver, and it will create ketones. So glucose goes down, lipase releases your triglycerides, your fatty acids. The fatty acids travel to the liver then produces ketones, and you get energy and fat loss out of that experience. Now, when you're eating high levels of carbohydrates, what happens is the glucose goes up, right? Then the pancreas excretes insulin. So then you have high glucose and high insulin. The insulin shuttles that glucose, because the body does not want a high glucose level in its body. Its immediate reaction is to pump out that insulin. Insulin comes out and shuttles into the cells. And what happens then is, energy is made, because glucose itself isn't bad. We need glucose. We use glucose. It's good for us. But so you get energy, but then you also get fat storage, because most likely you probably ate more glucose than you needed, right? And then you made fat. So those are your two options, right? Do you want to consume something or not consume something? But either way, do you want to be in a state in which you end up with energy and fat loss, or do you want to be in a state where you end up in energy and fat gain? All right. Kind of a good way to look at it, right? So you're fasting, your body goes and breaks down, and you get all the energy you need from your fat stores. Because think about it again, what is another function that the human body does? It allows us to carry our energy on our body. We forgot, we had amnesia at some point. We forgot that, the fat in our body is not bad. The fat in our body is just stored fuel, right? Really think about that. It's just stored fuel. That's all it is. The body is trying to help you and keep you alive. So stop fat shaming yourself and start loving your body as it is right now. All it is beautiful fuel for you to live your life and be passionate and vital. We're just going to try to get it down a little bit lower. So you look a little bit sexier in your bikini, and you feel a little bit better, and your heart doesn't have to work as hard. Unless you're already, we're all at different spaces of that, and we all cycle through different times where we have a little bit more fat, a little bit more energy stored in our body, and sometimes we have a little bit less. Sometimes we're genetically more predisposed to store more or less. There's all different reasons that our bodies look the way that they look right now. But just considering, you could be watching this at any point, but I'm making this the day after Valentine's Day, so a little bit of self-love, guys. It's where you got to start from. You got to love yourself exactly where you are, and then start to understand what's happening and understand that this is just all part of the human experience. All right, so the other time, so that's when we're not taking anything in, is that the body will go and break out on your fat. The other scenario that we can bring ourselves into this state, this naturally occurring metabolic state called ketosis, is when we have a low level of glucose coming in, but we do have protein and fat coming in. So again, same thing. Because you don't have a lot of carbohydrates coming in, your glucose is down, your insulin is down. Because that happens, lipase releases your stored triglycerides, which means your body breaks down your body fat. It starts to eat its own fat. Because you can really only access that body fat when you are in a low insulin state. And for many people, literally it's only 7% of the population or something ridiculous that is truly insulin sensitive. Now, this whole program is about getting you insulin sensitive. So, when you're insulin resistant, it's very hard to access that fuel, that beautiful fuel that your body's carrying around. So we teach your body to be able to access that beautiful fuel. So your body accesses the fuel because although it's eating, it has not. It's utilizing both the fatty acids and the proteins that you have, the amino acids that you have fed the body. But because the glucose is low, the insulin is low. The body will then go release some of those fatty acids that are in your body, and they will release that to go to the liver to make the ketones. And again, you have energy and fat loss. But yet this time you ate. Wow, that's pretty cool, right? So what is a ketone? A ketone is a water-soluble molecule that's produced in the liver from the fatty acids during periods of low energy or low glucose intake. And you can also produce ketones during prolonged exercise, particularly if you combine all of that. And we burn it for energy. Your muscles, your brain, and in fact, your brain loves ketones. They burn cleaner. There's less reactive oxygen species. It burns the way that ketones burn in that citric acid cycle. Actually, is in a cleaner. The phases in which it burns actually burns the energy cleaner, so you have less inflammation and less and so you have less inflammation in your body. Well, it's clean. It's a cleaner fuel. So that is what a ketone is. That is also why, if you are new to this, you may have a period of when you have a stinky breath, stinky pits, and even a stinky lower region. And this goes away, and I promise it really does. So one, you just, peppermint essential oil. The masks kind of help with the keto breath. Lots of water, greens, eating parsley and cilantro seems to really help balance that out. And just know it goes away. On some level. You'll always have a little bit of some, especially if you go in and out of ketosis, some people excrete that acetone a little bit different than other people. Some people will take that acetone back in a little bit more efficient way. And then the longer you do this, the more efficient you get, and the less stinky you get. But think of it as like a badge of honor, right? Like the more people are doing this, the more people will have to go through this, and it is a healthier way. It's just that it's not something that we're used to because we've been burning glucose nonstop for hundreds, not thousands. Okay. So we're talking about ketosis. Natural metabolic state allows for metabolic flexibility. A ketone is just a molecule that we can burn. It's fuel. We get it from our own fat. And then, so how do we make this work? How do we put this into a real life scenario, right? So there's a couple of different ways in which, so we already talked about how you can do it with fasting. When you're going to do it with a diet, there's a couple different things to think about. Now, if you just Google it, they're going to tell you want to do 5, 25, or, 5% carbohydrates, 20 to 25% protein, and then 70 to 75% fat. So I'm sure you've all seen those pie graphs. We're a little bit protein centric here, so I really want that 25 plus percentage of protein. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but there are people in the world that will tell you that protein will kick you out of ketosis. I disagree. The only time that might happen is you're starting getting to like 1.2, 1.5 grams of protein per true body weight. And that is something that's very individual to each person. This is because they believe that protein neogenesis, I need ketones in my brain. Gluconeogenesis is going to happen from that protein intake. And there is some truth to that theory. But what we would do is if you are eating, if you're like an athlete or you're building, you're trying to bulk, or you're really trying to you're a strength athlete and you're really trying to gain your strength, so you're really doing a little bit higher of that protein intake, we could check. That's why I have you guys get the Keto Mojo. But I have never really seen this happen. Mostly everybody tolerates. I have clients that are even on the, who are fully carnivore and are that's old. That's an old fear. There's also a lot of fear surrounding animal protein right now, and there's a lot of fear surrounding protein intake in general, not just because of kicking yourself out of ketosis, but because of the mTOR and autophagy thing. We'll cover this a little bit in more detail in a different video, but what I want to tell you is if you're eating pastured, wild, like true grass-fed, wild, or pastured animals, and you're cooking them appropriately, and you're buying them from really intelligent farmers, the studies have a lot of holes in them as far as that cancer risk. So it's actually an incredibly healthy food for you to consume, and we'll go through this in more detail. But this video is on ketosis, so we're not going to do that. Also the mTOR thing, I mean, you want high protein and low protein. We'll talk about that in more detail in an mTOR video, but that there's just some myths and some misunderstandings out there, and people who think you need to keep your mTOR quiet, downregulated all the time. But again, that's not how nature works. Nature works with up and down, on and off, cycle on, cycle off. Everything should be cycled on and off, including ketosis, but not at the beginning. So if you're brand new, I really want you to try to be in ketosis via your diet and fasting as we move forward. So how do you do this? So if you want to put this in, if you're somebody who likes to weigh and track, then you would want to put those percentages in. I can help you do your macros. So if anyone ever needs their macros, then I can help you do them. Or there's lots of calculators. Keto Gains is the one I usually tell people to use. Or you can just type in these percentages if you're using like MyFitnessPal or Carb Manager are the two that I'm the most familiar with. And it would be the percentages, but then you have to figure out your macros and your calories and all this stuff. The other thing is like, just keep your carbohydrates under 20 net. So what is net? Full total carbohydrates for the day minus your fiber gives you your total. So 20 to 30 net carbohydrates in a 24-hour period, or in your feasting window, should put you into ketosis eventually. Now, some of you, if you're insulin resistant, it's going to take a little while. It varies person to person. Protein should be in that 0.8 to 1 gram to your lean muscle or your or just your body weight. If you have a lot of body weight to lose, either drop it to that 0.8 or do that 0.8 to 1 to your lean muscle as opposed to your body weight. And then fat's a lever. So at the beginning, you really want to kind of push that fat because it's going to help you. Your body isn't going to be quite ready to access your own adipose. So eating fat's going to help prime that pump. But then as you move forward, if you kind of stall out, then we're going to stop pulling away that fat and maybe upping that protein. But the fat, if you're hungry, you eat fat. If you're full, you don't have to worry about hitting that fat number. Where in old school, if you Google it, people will tell you that you have to hit your fat level. Well, the fact of the matter is the fat doesn't make you go into ketosis. It's the low glycemic state that makes you go into ketosis, which is another myth and misunderstanding that a lot of people have out there. So fat makes it easier, but it does not make you go into ketosis. It's the low glycemic state that makes you go into ketosis. I think that's it. I think I'm going to cut it there because that's the basics. All right, guys, if you don't want to measure and weigh, just look at your plate, fill it up with, do your math, and I have some stuff out there, but make sure you're getting at least 30 grams. If you're not hitting your protein, at least 30 to 50 grams at every meal, especially if you're only eating 2 meals. And if you're working with me, you're probably only eating 1 or 2 meals a day in your feasting window. Make sure you're hitting those big numbers. You never want to eat less than 30 grams of protein, because if you eat less than 30 grams of protein, you're not going to hit your 3 grams of leucine. And leucine is the amino acid that really stimulates, really important for the stimulation of protein synthesis, which is how you get lean muscle. There's 2 ways to get lean muscle. You work out and you eat protein in the appropriate way, right? And we want lean muscle. Which is, again, another video. Ketosis, metabolic state. Ketones are water-soluble molecules that give us energy. We get them from our body fat. You just want to make sure you drop your carbs low. Salt, 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 salt. Any problems with this and you salt, ask me questions, post them on the page. I'm always available, always at some point will respond back, and I love questions because it helps me kind of direct there's so much energy, there's so much information out there. And I try to do it in digestible bites, but obviously look at it, we're at 20 minutes already. And this is supposed to be a quick, easy video. So there's so much information. So if you don't ask me questions, I don't know which way to direct this info, right? Because we could go more into biochemistry, we could go more in, there's just so much more we could talk about. Let me know what you want to talk about. All right, guys. Happy keto. Have a good day. Bye.